And welcome back to Hannity. Now, Tuesday, during a speech at Vanderbilt University, ESPN commentator, friend of mine, Stephen A. Smith, delivered some very powerful words about the black vote in America. Watch this.
I have often said that from a political perspective, what I dream is that for one election, just one, every black person in America vote Republican. Do you know that since 1964, the black America hasn't given the Republican Party more than 15% of its vote? Here's what that means. What that means is one party, the black folks in America are telling one party, we don't give a damn about you. They're telling the other party, you got our vote. Therefore, you have labeled yourself disenfranchised because one party knows they got you under their thumb, the other party knows they'll never get you, and nobody comes to address your interests.
Now, while Stephen A. eloquently made an argument for political change in the black community, Democratic Senator Dick Durbin, he was busy using shameful race-baiting tactics to trash Republicans who oppose the nomination of Loretta Lynch on principle. Take a look.
The Republican Majority Leader announced over the weekend that he was going to hold this nomination of Loretta Lynch until the bill, which is pending before the Senate, passes, whenever that may be. And so, Loretta Lynch, the first African-American woman nominated to be Attorney General, is asked to sit in the back of the bus when it comes to the Senate calendar.
Back of the bus, really? Keep in mind, this is the same Senator, Durbin, who actively opposed the nomination of Condoleezza Rice as Secretary of State. Here now with reaction is former assistant to the President Bush, Daily Beast columnist, our friend Ron Christie, Above the Law editor, Elie Mystal is with us, and also Fox News contributor DeRoy Murdoch. Guys, good to see you. Is he right, DeRoy?
Durbin, you mean?
No, not Durbin. Durbin's never right.
No, Durbin's very wrong.
Stephen A.
Oh, I think Stephen's absolutely correct. Look, I think that the key word in his statement was disenfranchised. Unfortunately, we black folks have put ourselves in this country where one party takes us for granted, thinks no matter what we do or don't do for them, they're going to line up and vote for us about 95%. And the other party figures, well, we're never going to get their vote, so why even bother? And what happens is black people fall completely between the stools. And that's very unfortunate. Every 4 years, the Democrats come out and they say, well, if you vote for Republican, as Joe Biden said, you know, the Republicans have put you back in chains. You remember that comment?
Yeah.
Which is just ugly, horrendous race baiting. And then after the election, they turn their backs, they walk away. You don't get school choice. You don't get any kind of economic development. And you basically get the unfortunate conditions you see in so many black neighborhoods around the country.
Let me ask you, are black Americans, when you look at we nearly have 50 million Americans on food stamps. We nearly have 50 million Americans in poverty. We have 92 million Americans not working. Under this president, he will accumulate more debt than every other president before him, excuse me. And my question to you is, and 50% of black teenagers can't get a summer job. The economy's so bad. Can you make the case, he's now in his 7th year, are black Americans better off under Barack Hussein Obama as president?
Yes, of course.
How?
They're not worse off. As they most likely would have been under.
I just gave you numbers. There's nearly 20 million more Americans on food stamps and in poverty. We have the lowest labor participation rate since '78. I'm asking you, give me some numbers to back up. How are black Americans better off? Median income is down $4,000 under Obama. How are black Americans better off?
Than they would have been under a Romney presidency?
They would have been. Since he has taken over, has black Americans...
Since he arrived.
Have they done better?
Are they better off than they were 8 years ago?
Tell me how.
Absolutely.
Give me by what measure?
By what measure? I guess I don't understand the question. By what measure do you think they're worse
Median
off?
income is down. 50% of black teenagers can't get a job.
Right? The economy has been down. Now it's getting better.
It's 7 years, and we still have
the economy is better.
Nearly 20 million Americans more
Gas is
on
down
food
to
stamps.
$2.50. I'm sure that
20
helps.
million more Americans in poverty under Obama.
No. And on food stamps, you've got, when Obama arrived, there were about 7.5 million black folks on food stamps. Now, numbers now about 12 million. Black teenage unemployment has gone up. Labor force participation has gone down. Black home ownership has dropped. These socioeconomic indicators have deteriorated.
Just in the black community.
Just among black folks. So we've got the wonderful symbolic value of having the first black president. In terms of material benefits, it's just been down for black people since Obama arrived.
But can you think of any statistical measure, Ron Christie, any that shows that the black community in America is better off under America's first black president?
No, not one, Sean. Good evening. You know, what really depresses me about the Democrats is that they try to filibuster the issue. They try to talk over you. They try to talk louder. The fact of the matter is that black unemployment rate hovers around 12% in this country. When Barack Obama came into office, there were more African Americans working than there are today. We can go through the welfare stats. We can go through the crime stats. If you go across the board, things are worse in America. And when you look at it in terms of race, you know, the president always wants to have this great conversation about race. He doesn't tell you about the kids that are going wild in Minneapolis. He doesn't tell you about the kids that are going wild across the country in Chicago. These are young black men. He's too busy hanging out with Al Sharpton and saying how Obamacare is working, the economy is working.
All right, so
yes,
go back.
exactly.
I want to go back to you. I have a very specific question, and I want you to answer this question. Give me one measure where black Americans, one statistic you can cite that they're better off.
I disagree with the premise of the question. I disagree with the premise that the black experience in America can be reduced to unemployment statistics and food stamp statistics and have that somehow link up with President Barack Obama's performance.
No, because
right?
but the reason I bring it up is because during his campaign, his vice president did play the race card about talking about putting blacks back in chains. The Democratic Party has often used the same statistic. Dick Durbin is saying Loretta Lynch opposes what our constitutional authority is on immigration. She believes in the president's use of executive power, which would bypass congressional laws and the Constitution. So opposing that is on constitutional grounds, not racial grounds. And I'm asking you to tell me how black Americans are better off, and you can't answer. You can't give me a specific answer. Why? Because they're worse off. I'll answer it for you.
Okay. Again, I don't really understand or agree with the premise of the question, but it seems to me
then tell me how they're better off.
How are they not better off? Like, it's hard to prove a negative.
Okay, DeRoy, would you like to take that?
Well, again, you look at the economy, which has basically been very, very poor for most people in America, but particularly poor for black Americans. Black labor force participation has gone down. Black teen labor force participation also has dropped. Black home ownership is down. The number of black people on food stamps
by $3,000 or
that has dropped as well, and the number of blacks on food stamps has gone from 7.5 to about 12 million.
I'm waiting to see how that links up to Obama, to Barack
and he's had 7 years to fix it.
He's had 7 years in office to make these things better, and we always measure whether they're black, white, or Hispanic, or whatever they are. We measure political political performance on the basis of socioeconomic indicators. This has been something that's been done going back to the days of FDR, maybe Coolidge. And this is how we rate Obama and Bush and Reagan and everybody else. And
I think Ron,
have gotten
let me go
worse
to Ron.
for black people.
Stephen A. has this point, is that the Democratic Party, they do play the race card, and they get people all worked up. Al Gore saying Republicans don't even want to count black people in the census. Hillary Clinton goes into her accent. Al Gore goes into his accent. We've seen it played among members. Eric Holder, I would make the case. The president's been wrong on Cambridge Police, Trayvon Ferguson. And I'm asking, why does the Democratic Party have this hold on black Americans' vote if they are not prospering under Democratic policies? Why?
Well, I think the Democrats have demagogued the issue since the days of the Civil Rights Movement. Let's remember, we would not have had the Voting Rights Act in 1965. We wouldn't have had the Civil Rights Act in 1964 if it wasn't for Republicans, Sean, who pushed this through. LBJ didn't want to do this. He actually got it done out of political expediency. And then the Democrats turned the cards around and said, oh, well, if it wasn't for us, since it was a Democratic president, you owe your political allegiance to us because we actually got these things for you, which is a lie. And look what they've actually done.
Right.
We have created
the
a poverty society in
eviscerated the Voting Rights Act.
No, in fact,
the Supreme Court?
That's wrong. Reagan signed a 25-year extension of the Voting Rights Act. G.W. Bush signed a 25-year extension of the Voting Rights Act.
And John Roberts
that's a 50-year
extension at the Supreme Court.
No, it's all still there. It was extended by 50 years by Reagan.
I'm going to
go
back. I'm going to give you one more chance.
There's a little small thing about going back and getting permission for states before the Department of Justice.
You're new to the show,
but most of it's all still
I'm going to give you one more
chance. Vast majority of it.
Give me one statistical piece of evidence that the black community under Barack Obama, they gave him 90+% of their vote, is better off under his policies. Give me a measurement that you can point to.
No, I don't accept the president's premise of this question at all. I cannot give you one shining super metric that explains the difference in experience for black people under this president versus black people under the president's potential competitors.
Because his policies have failed all Americans, especially hit hard is the black community. And you know what? his policies have failed them. And when 50% of black teenagers can't get a job, that means that they're hanging out with their friends. If white teenagers can't get a job or Hispanic teenagers, they're hanging out with their friends. That's not good. It's better for kids to be working and have opportunity. And under this president, half of black teenagers can't get a job. He hasn't fixed that problem.
He's not.
And that is a shame, because the best thing that ever happened to me when I was 12 years old was washing dishes in a restaurant. You know why? Because it kept me out of trouble.
Did Jimmy Carter get you that job? Like, who got you that job? I would hope that there were employers out there willing to hire young black teens. And if they're not, I don't see how that's Obama's fault.
You have a president who's responsible largely for creating socioeconomic conditions, or the economic conditions that either cause businesses to thrive and people get hired, or the poor economic conditions means that they don't.
Good to appreciate you being here.